The purpose of this video is to show you everything that Devastation Evoker has to offer you in the war within so that you can make the calculated decision as to whether or not it's going to be worth your time. We're going to be covering a whole span of different content and talking about the things that are going to make it the most viable in that content. We're also going to be talking about fun. How many new goodies are you getting? How good does it feel? What is the fantasy like when you're logging on it? So this is an all-encompassing video providing you with a ton of value. And if you'd like to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. Now, Devastation Evoker is a highly mobile, on-the-move caster that can do tons of devastating damage on the go. It provides a lot of utility to its teammates as well, with the ability to stun through Deep Breath and the ability to root targets with Landslide, and enabling you to also cast single target crowd controls like Sleepwalk when necessary in PvE environments when you're mostly blasting AoE monsters. Sleepwalk's not going to be too important, but in PvP scenarios, Sleepwalk can definitely be invaluable. It has a ton of really fun mobility abilities like Verdant Embrace in order to fly to allies in order to heal them, and abilities like Rescue to pick up somebody and bring them somewhere else, which can be really fun. You've also got Bloodlust, and Bloodlust is just it's always one of the most fun abilities that you can press in the game. No complaints there, so you're going to be desirable on that front as well. You bring solid personal defense with 2 charges of Obsidian Scales, providing you even more damage reduction now in the War Within. Renewing Blaze for recovery against mechanics that may be targeting you more singularly. And you also have the ability to cauterize bleeds, poisons, and disease effects. So when necessary in Mythic Plus, when there's mobs that apply these effects, you're going to be invaluable. And in PvP against classes that have bleeds, which are honestly looking pretty powerful, things like Feral Druid, having the ability to remove those bleed effects is definitely very important. We're still bringing Oppressing Roar as well, which will extend the duration of crowd control effects on targets, which is really good in the entire game, being able to extend the duration of your Deep Breath stun on a trash pack to make sure that all the mobs get blasted down in AoE, or to extend crowd control like a Sleepwalk for additional time, or crowd control of your teammates in PvP. The baseline kit of the Devastation Evoker is really powerful at the moment in the War Within, and likely going to be remaining the case. Now, with your hero talent abilities, when we're talking a bit more about like the fun factor, we've got 2 choices. We've got the Flame Shaper and we've got the Scale Commander, and at the moment I've selected the Scale Commander, and this will give you access to Mass Disintegrate, which will then be your empower spells like Fire Breath and Eternity Surge will cause Disintegrate to just cleave AoE damage onto tons of enemies, which is really good in dungeon situations. But there's also the benefit that if you only hit 1 target, you will get 25% increasing damage for every missing target. So 50% damage on a single target. So it's good in AoE and it's good in single target, which makes this thing desirable in the game across the board. It's really just a blanket powerful one that looks and feels really awesome when you get to press it. Do note, though, in PvP, there are a lot more pet classes, so you've got to really be careful about when you're timing your empower abilities if you want to try and hit 1 target to make sure you're getting single target burst, because there's likelihood that you're going to be cleaving a lot of AoE damage. So you got to be really careful with that in PvP situations, but this is likely going to be really desirable across the entire game. This talent tree is really well designed in that regard. You're just going to get damage increasing passive enhancements, and you're going to get bombardments, because this is a talent tree that I believe is shared with augmentation. You get a little bit of the augmentation flavor, which is you and your allies have a chance to trigger a bombardment when attacking marked targets, dealing volcanic damage split amongst enemies, and those bombardments have the chance to reduce the cooldown of your Deep Breath by 1 second for each target struck. So if you're AoEing a lot of pets, you're going to get a really low cooldown Deep Breath in PvP, but also in PvE, which means you can access AoE stunning mobs way more frequently. It's going to be super powerful at the moment, and bombardments can also grant you Essence Burst so that they can then give you more spam Disintegrates, which then you can power up to do 50% more damage to a single target, or to just massively AoE and melt people. This is a highly synergized, very fun to play talent tree, and not to mention you've got maneuverability, which is the ability to control the direction that your Deep Breath is going to go. Although it is a little bit slower at the moment to control, you're pretty much never going to miss the thing that you're intending to hit anymore. Now that it is not in a straight line only, you're going to have full control of that, so that has felt really good. We also can, like I said earlier, up the Obsidian Scales damage reduction by an additional 5%, which makes it more valuable in PvE situations, which it's all about surviving this like one-hit wonder amount of damage, but also gives you the nice benefit in PvP. Or you can run for Menacing Presence, which is when you knock enemies up or knock them back, the damage done to you is reduced by 15%. Now, it is only to you, in PvE, I don't think that's going to be as good, but in PvP, if you wanted to get like an extra little bit of damage mitigation, possibly against like 2 melee attackers or maybe a whole slew of melee attackers, you could give yourself a lot more personal defense if you're expecting to get attacked. But I am kind of leaning that Hardened Scales with the additional 5% to Obsidian Scales is probably just universally going to be one of the most desirable talents, because it's just an extra 5% DR. It's safe. It always gives you value. Deep Breath, resetting the cooldown of your hover, is going to give you a lot more mobility. I said you're already on the mobile, on the go type of caster, but now you can Deep Breath, reduce the cooldown of the Deep Breath of the bombardments, and then hover even more, and you're just going to be all over the place. You're just going to be zooping all over the place. Or you can take some area of effect damage reduction if it's necessary, if you're pushing keys really high, or maybe if the raid demands it, if you need some area of effect damage reduction, you can now get that through Nimble Flyer and the usage of hover to provide that to you. So they're covering all their bases with this. Unrelenting Siege, for each second you are in combat, Azure Strike, Living Flame, and Disintegrate will deal 1% increased damage up to 15. So this is just synergizing again with the Mass Disintegrate for even more damage and devastation. Deep Breath causes enemies to take 20% increased damage from your bombardments and your Essence abilities. So you're going to be getting Essence Break, proccing more of those from the bombardments. They're going to be a really important component. So we can just take a look at that right now. You'd be something like a Deep Breath for engagement. You could use your Dragon Rage, your Palm, your Shattering Star, go for a huge Fire Breath, lay waste with your Disintegrates with massive single target pressure. We got those Living Flames that are stacking out damage. We're proccing instant cast. We're getting Essence Burst. I mean, look at how much Essence I have already. I just have blown through 2 Essence Bursts. We got another Essence Burst. I could pretty much just sit here and jam on Disintegrate almost all day, and then I can charge it up with another Eternity Surge, and we can just keep clapping, just doing monstrous amounts of damage. We've already reset our Fire Breath, which means we can get the benefit of that Mass Disintegrate even more for more devastation towards the single target. This build has heavily enhanced the gameplay and the flavor of Devastation Evoker from Dragonflight, and is looking to be like one of the strongest contenders in both viability as well as fun and performance. So definitely keep your eyes out on the Skill Commander, but you do have options for the Flame Shaper, which I believe is a talent tree shared between Preservation and Devastation. This is going to give you access to a new ability called Engulf. So if you're somebody who doesn't like a lot of keybinds, you may want to opt towards a Scale Commander. You're not going to have to deal with getting another ability. But this one, if you want a couple of more abilities, because Devastation doesn't really have a lot to be baseline, to be fair, you're going to get Engulf. Engulf your target in Dragon Flame, damaging them for 450,000 fire damage, or healing them for 430,000 damage for each of your periodic effects on the target. Effectiveness is increased by 50%. Now, you don't really have periodic effects as Devastation, unfortunately, so the healing of this is probably like, it's only going to hit this amount no matter what. You can't apply reversion like Preservation, but I'm very interested to see how this plays out with the rotation of the class. We have talents like Trailblazer, Hover, and Deep Breath will travel faster, and Hover will travel further. Or we can get Tail Swipe and Wing Buffet will scorch enemies and blind them, causing their next attack to miss within 4 seconds. So if you wanted to stop an important crowd control or a hard-hitting attack, or maybe your tank was about to die in PvE, and you could come through with a clutch save with a Tail Swipe and a Wing Buffet and the cooldown reduction on the baseline talent trees, and have this kind of hero moment with this talent tree. Traveling Flame Engulf increases the duration of Fire Breath by 8 seconds, causes it to spread to a target within 25 yards, so just spreading wildfire, playing into the Flame Shaper. And Kindle, Essence abilities are enhanced with Flame, dealing 20% of healing or damage done as fire over 8 seconds. So a heavy focus on damage over time effects. Conduit of Flame, critical strike chance to targets above 50% health is increased by 10%. And Burning Adrenaline. Engulf quickens your pulse, reducing your cast time of your next spell by 30%, which will stack up to 2 times. We have choices between Fan the Flames, casting Engulf reignites all active and kindles, increasing their damage or healing over time by 100%. And Expanded Lungs. Fire Breath damage over time is increased by 20%. Dream Breath heal over time is increased by 20%. Titanic Precision. Living Flame and Azure Strike critical strikes have a 100% chance to trigger Essence Burst. And Red Hot. Engulf gains 1 additional charge and deals 20% increased damage and healing. So you get 2 charges of this. You could heal up an ally, go after an enemy. It's a 30-second cooldown, very low cooldown. Life Cinders. Renewing Blaze also applies to your target or nearby injured ally when cast. Interesting. Renewing Blaze also applies to your target, so you can give an ally this powerful healing cooldown. You could give it to your tank. You could give it in PvP to somebody that's getting attacked that isn't you. That's a very flavorful component towards team utility. Or we can get your wounds have a small chance to cauterize healing you for 30% of the damage taken. Occurs more often when on attacks that deal high damage. Or you can just get passive self-healing on top of having Renewing Blaze, although I don't really understand why I'm stuck in combat right now. We're going to try and drop that really quick here so we can get that talent locked in here to show you guys what it does. Consume the Flame. Engulf consumes 4 seconds of fire breath from the target, detonating it and damaging all nearby enemies equal to 300%. I really want to see what this detonation looks like. I need to see the power of the engulf. Okay, what does this thing look like? What is it going to do? Is it going to be stupendous? Is it going to be monumentous? We're about to find out for ourselves here. We'll start the engagement with Deep Breath. We'll fly through. We can't control it anymore because we don't have that talent anymore. We'll use Shattering Star, Fire Breath. We'll go for an engulf. Engulf! Oh my god, okay, that's a big explosion of damage. Wait, I'm going to do that again. Engulf! Okay, that's going to do a lot of damage. And the extra utility towards healing, the extra damage on Living Flame is definitely going to feel good. Although I will say I am missing the ability to control where my Deep Breath goes. But I think the trade-off of that is that you're just going to get a lot of extra healing on top of this new ability that explodes for a massive amount of AoE. I could see this really good in situations with AoE. Maybe not so much single target, though. We'll get our Fire Breath up here again. Fire Breath up. Engulf. It just explodes like a living bomb and just shatters, does damage. This Enkindle is doing 20 trillion damage to this low-level training dummy, but that number looks hysterically high. So very interesting synergies between Engulf and Fire Breath. And the fact that Fire Breath still remains on the target, so you can buff it up with Disintegrate through some of your baseline talents, definitely means that it's still going to be, you know, more of a viable option. I'll say that this talent tree looks a little bit less flashy. I'm thinking that Scale Commander is probably going to steal the show in regards to this because of just the fluidity of being able to move around, all the cooldown reduction associated to Deep Breath and Hover to enable you even more mobility. I think it's a little bit of a downside trade towards the Flame Shaper, but the fact that Engulf is instant cast when you're dealing with quick engagements, especially leveling up, Engulf could be really good because it's going to absolutely one-tap AoE mobs. You don't have to worry about ramping up and getting towards the phase of Mass Disintegrate. Maybe the mobs are already dead by the time you get there. So like early game in the War Within, I could see Engulf kind of taking the show away with its more immediate damage accessibility compared to that of the Mass Disintegrate, but they both look really fun. It still has the same simple flavor of Devastation from Dragonflight moving forward, so I feel like they've done a great job in that regard. They've rearranged some of the talents on the normal side, so you have more access to personal defense without having to go through things you don't want to get, things like Source of Magic moving off to the right. So if you want to get mana regeneration for your team, you can, going over here, but you don't need to like go out of your way in order to get Renewing Blaze on the baseline tree. So little quality of life improvements there. Nice overall, I would say. It's clean. It may be playing it on the safe side, but it looks like it's going to be super fun. Only major downside for Devastation is that you are basically directly competing with Augmentation, and as of this time, Augmentation is looking really disgustingly good. So this is me just giving you the fair shot at like overall viability and the competitive nature of the game. Augmentation is probably going to be stealing the show, at least in Mythic Plus for sure. And possibly PvP depending on the tuning, because at the moment it's just absolutely nasty. But it's not to say that you can't make Devastation work, and it's not to say that it doesn't look really fun. So if you want to try and make it work and have some fun with it, definitely go for it. I would highly recommend it. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed this detailed analysis, and I will see you in the next one.